You hear Red Bull and think energy drink, but have you realized that this fact alone shows how Red Bull is much more than a beverage? It's a media empire and a marketing machine, setting a lifestyle for its avid consumers. In fact, if you really think about it, Red Bull sells the idea of adrenaline, all packaged neatly in a slim blue and silver can. Over time, it has become one of the most recognizable brands in this era, known by its tagline, name, product, and even packaging, practically instantly. And the wildest part? This isn't some Gen Z startup from the 2010s. Red Bull was launched all the way back in 1987, making it a bona fide millennial-aged brand. Yet somehow, despite being nearly 4 decades old, it behaves like a digital native. It's quite culturally fluent for a brand from that era, and it seems to be built for today's fragmented, fast-moving world. While so many legacy brands are scrambling to modernize or rebrand themselves to stay relevant, Red Bull just keeps moving forward. It has dutifully kept its youthful and rebellious energy. You see, in a world where brands often lose their voice with age, Red Bull has done the opposite. It has helped define the times beyond just keeping up with things. You already know that this isn't just about selling drinks. This is about building your brand's story and meaning. Red Bull gives you wings, yes, and it also gives the branding world a prime example of staying perpetually cool. But before we dive in, if you're into brand stories that go beyond the product, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Before Red Bull, energy drink wasn't really a thing. There were caffeine pills and sugary sodas, sure, soft drinks with caffeine, with athletes hauling around sports drinks like Gatorade. But the idea of a small functional beverage that gives you a mental and physical kick, that was Red Bull's innovation. Before that, there was no mainstream product designed to give you a sharp mental and physical boost, so to speak, in a small highlight branded package. Really, Red Bull did more than fill a gap, since it created a whole new space in the market and then filled it. An interesting detail is that it actually took some inspiration from functional tonics that were, and still are, popular in the region of Southeast Asia. In particular, a Thai beverage called Krating Dang. They repackaged Krating Dang to cater to and attract Western consumers, making it more minimal appearing. And truth to be told, it was a hit. It was 1987 when Austrian entrepreneur Dietrich Mateschitz co-founded Red Bull GmbH. He had the formula refined and launched the beloved beverage in a sleek yet distinctive can. Of course, audiences were at first a tad skeptical. The product was polarizing. Some said it tasted like cough syrup, others swore by its effectiveness. What no one could deny though was that Red Bull felt different. From the can design to the messaging, Red Bull gives you wings. Everything about the brand screamed alternative. The thing is, Red Bull never really tried to appeal to everyone, and instead totally owned the edginess it had developed. Basically, Red Bull wasn't selling a beverage, it was selling the idea of energy as a lifestyle. Saying that Red Bull is great at marketing would be a gross understatement. If anything, we could go as far as to call Red Bull Exhibit A of the marketing first concept. You can likely already tell that it didn't become a global sensation just with an innovative product. Yes, the drink is amazing, and many consumers swear by it. But the average buyer isn't just grabbing their first Red Bull because of promised effects. It's true that from day one, Red Bull built its camp on the brand over product hill. All of its marketing communications revolved around the idea of a life that's figuratively less ordinary. It used activities like skydiving, snowboarding, street racing, or even late-night studying to show how this amber-colored drink will make extremely difficult tasks enjoyable and breezy. Simply, the company figured out one thing that most brands are still struggling with. It's understood that people don't want to buy things, they want to buy into things. The item they pick up off the rack is, unless it's a basic necessity, something they want to identify with. And the modern consumer, spending all day in office cubicles, classrooms, or hourly shifts, is the most willing entity to reach out to the extraordinary, and Red Bull connects them to exactly that image. It's practically a membership into a subculture of thrill seekers and creatives. Now, you already know what kind of message Red Bull has sought to, and succeeded to communicate, but it's also important to note how exactly the energy brand went about it. Long before content is king became a cliche used by brands using a Gen Z-like persona to make many funny TikToks, Red Bull was actually producing branded films, events, and live experiences that had little to do with drinking an energy beverage. You'll find the Red Bull name in everything, from extreme sports coverage to documentaries. And in fact, Red Bull made an entire media arm, Red Bull Media House. This wasn't a side hustle. Red Bull Media House is a full-scale operation that produces video content, music, and documentaries, often under its own name, but always connected with the core brand's identity. The ingenuity here is subtle but powerful. Red Bull went a step beyond straightforwardly placing ads inside content. Red Bull became the content itself. They understood that attention is the most valuable currency in modern business. So instead of buying it, they built a machine that earns it organically. Think of any high-octane event or extreme sport, and there's a good chance Red Bull is involved. Snowboarding in the Alps? Red Bull. Cliff diving in Greece? Red Bull. Soapbox racing through the streets? Red Bull. Red Bull has turned participation into promotion. This is no accident. Rather than sponsor mainstream events, Red Bull creates its own and tells its own story in the process. Events like the Red Bull Rampage for mountain biking or the Red Bull Air Race are competitions alongside being branded experiences that increase loyalty and generate viral moments that attract even more consumers. Then there's music. Red Bull Soundclash and Red Bull Music Academy have become breeding grounds for rising talent. You see, the Red Bull brand does something a little more than just slapping a logo on a stage. It actually nurtures culture from the inside, creating an entire community from its brand image alone. But know that they don't advertise a culture. Instead, they participate in it themselves, or even fund it. This is brand immersion at a level few others even attempt. One of Red Bull's biggest paradoxes is how it managed to grow into a $10 billion global brand while still feeling like it's an underground movement. How? By staying relentlessly niche in tone and behavior. Red Bull doesn't bother trying to be everything to everyone. It speaks fluently to its tribe, adrenaline junkies, gamers, late-night hustlers, creatives, and dreamers. Whether it's sponsoring an obscure BMX trick contest or collaborating with a local street artist, Red Bull targets subcultures instead of nameless masses like other beverage giants. Even as it's expanded to over 170 countries, Red Bull still feels personal. That's all thanks to its localized campaigns, regional sports events, youth ambassadors, and overall community engagement moves that keep the brand fresh and authentic at every stage in a campaign. On October 14, 2012, Red Bull pulled off a stunt that blurred the line between spectacle and significance. It sent Felix Baumgartner soaring to 39 kilometers above Earth, 127,852 feet in a helium balloon, and then had him jump back to the planet in a custom pressure suit, a feat known as Red Bull Stratos. During the free fall, Baumgartner became the first human to break the sound barrier without engine power, reaching a top speed of Mach 1.25, 843 miles per hour, and sustaining approximately 4 minutes and 20 seconds of free fall before deploying his parachute and landing safely in the New Mexico desert. The jump went way beyond a physical milestone. You could say that it was a global event. At its height of attention, about 8 million people streamed the jump live on YouTube, making it one of the largest live stream audiences at that time, and all without paid advertising. Red Bull was never mentioned during the fall, yet the brand was the jump itself. Sales suddenly increased and earned media attention. Soon, Red Bull became synonymous with boundary-pushing daring, and all of this happened with no ad buys, nor any product pitches. It was truly thanks to an unforgettable leap that embodied the brand's main message. In late 2004, Red Bull did the unthinkable, not just sponsoring, but buying the entire Jaguar racing team. That too, for just $1. By 2005, Red Bull Racing was born, and radical re-imaging of what a consumer brand could do in sport. But there wasn't any logo placement or even passive endorsement. It's simply that Red Bull owned the car and the team. Behind the scenes, talent like team principal Christian Horner, who was just 31 at the time, and technical genius like Adrian Newey transformed Red Bull Racing into a high-performance innovation hub. They were turning it into 4-time drivers and constructors world champions between 2010 and 2013 with Sebastian Vettel, and a second dominant era with Max Verstappen winning the championship in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Formula One in 2025 surpassed 1.5 billion TV viewers globally, and Red Bull Racing was more visible than ever, both on and off the track, as it was influenced by events like city showruns, Red Bull TV content, and esports integration that turned fans into participants instead of only spectators. Now here's a brand that in today's genuinely overcrowded marketplace, chock full to the brim with younger, trendier competitors, has found and held its own niche for decades. Red Bull has proven that one of the most iconic brand legacies in the world wasn't made by following what's cool, but actually coming up with your own idea of what cool is. This energy drink company didn't pursue virality and kept on investing in timeless stories that attract thrill seekers and dreamers alike. Basically, Red Bull chose to create an entire culture of like-minded people who enjoyed such daring experiences and associated that thrill with the beverage itself. So you see, Red Bull doesn't just sell a can of energy drink, but rather a complete lifestyle, or at least an identity that promises the reward of flying if you dream big and live boldly. It went everywhere, from space to Formula 1 tracks and music videos, bringing together adventurers behind one logo. And that's why Red Bull is still so fresh. Even almost 40 years after it launched, it truly hasn't aged, adapting to new developments and leading many on its own. As far as branding is concerned, nothing is more powerful than that. So now that you know that Red Bull isn't just an energy drink, but a masterclass in branding, we want to hear from you. What's the most iconic Red Bull moment you remember? Was it the space jump, F1 domination, or maybe one of their insane stunts? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. If you found this video interesting, give it a thumbs up. It helps us keep bringing you stories behind the world's boldest brands. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into brands that change the game, just like Red Bull did. Because here, we don't just talk products, we uncover the power of the story behind them.